Turn over to big Romel Raffin. 6'9" giant with some beautiful touch on the ball.
Romel was all about winning and making the team better, and as I said, one of the greatest teammates you could ever want.
Full court press on by the Soviet Union. Canada is going to win this game. It's all over. And they're mobbing one another.
I think that's the biggest compliment you can give somebody, that you hate to play against them, but you love to play with them.
So I'm just hoping that the guys realize what a privilege it is playing for your country. And I'm always in awe and very humbled that they gave me that opportunity.
The fact that this guy, played 3 Olympics, should have been 4. It just tells you, how do you do that? How do you play for that long a period of time at that level and be as productive as he was?
Your first look at him, it was breathtaking. It was like, oh my God.
I don't think that Romel, when he started with the national team, had in his mind that he'd be playing for 12 years for the national team. He made a hell of a sacrifice.
Parents came over from Italy in '54. My mom was pregnant with me, so I was born in Toronto 5 months after. We lived in a place called Uxbridge, just a little place that we rented. My parents didn't have enough to stay on their own, so they lived with relatives.
There were 4 kids, and immediately they got like 4 or 5 boarders, and they had that house until 1957, and moved to Winona Drive. And Dad bought that house, and most of the boarders came with us.
I learned so much from them. Mom had to cook for the boarders, cook for the family.
Do all the laundry without, with a wringer washer, and she was a horse.
And Dad was always doing construction, and he didn't have a car, so he had to get a ride to wherever site they were working on, and hopefully we'd see him at the end of the night.
Why the gym teachers at Eastwood Collegiate didn't see this kid 6'4", 6'5", and say, come on out for the basketball team.
Well, we used to see him in the halls, in grade 9 and 10. And as a phys ed, everybody had to take phys ed then, so he was in phys ed classes too.
They kept bugging me to come out, and I kept avoiding them.
Romel was scared to go out for the basketball. He didn't have the confidence to go out for the basketball team or football team.
I think he just didn't want the harassment anymore of us trying to get him out for basketball. So he just finally came out in grade 12.
And they said, you gotta give it a try, And between grade 11 and 12, I grew a ton. I came back, I was 6'7" or 6'8" in grade 12, and people go, who is this guy?
In 1973, you just didn't see teams that big. Romel was 6'9", and Bill Hutt, our other center, and he was 6'7", and our shooting forward was 6'4", Paul Mustin. And our guards, Dave Rose and John Matura, I think one was 6'1", and the other 6'2" or something. So we were pretty formidable. When we walked on the floor, teams, especially teams that didn't know us, they would go, oh my God, what's going on here?
I didn't know what to expect. So basically I was just checking out what's going on and try to figure out the drills and where to move and how to move. So it's a big eye-opener for me.
And I remember we had to start from scratch. We went back to fundamentals. If he hears the word footwork one more time, he'd probably kill me, but that's all we did basically. He came out, he was brand new, so we did footwork drills, for 3/4 of an hour every day.
And by the end of the season, Romel became the starting center because he had the desire, and he got the opportunity, and he made the most of it.
In terms of personnel, it was the perfect storm. We had players that were really good at each position, and so it was a good fit, and Romel was one of the biggest pieces to help make that fit. Everything worked out really well, yeah.
I remember being in the 9th grade in 1971, 72, and hearing about there's a big guy in Kitchener at Eastwood, some guy named Romel Raffin. He's 6'9", and he can handle the ball and run the floor, and that's unheard of.
Welcome to the 25th annual Golden Ball basketball tournament.
Second year, his team from Eastwood Collegiate got into the Golden Ball tournament, and they got to the finals, and they played against my old high school, George Harvey, for the championship.
When you were in Ontario, there's nothing bigger than winning OFSA, the Ontario High School Championship. And I remember it was held at York University, and he was the guy that everybody wanted to see. He was 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". His height depended on who you listened to and how it varied.
Just in terms of being able to shoot better, rebound better, play defense better. I mean, everything was better because he'd done it before.
Turn over to big Romel Raffin. A 6'9" giant with some beautiful touch on a ball.
Your first look at him, it was breathtaking. It was like, oh my God, there's a guy that big that can run that fast and not move like Frankenstein.
Misses it. Bill Hutt comes up with the ball, and Raffin gets the rebound.
I had a hell of a game, that provincial final, which was good for me. And my brother got the video, they got the original, converted it to something that was manageable, and then we were able to send it off.
A fellow who was like a graduate assistant teaching at George Harvey, I asked him, do you think you could get the game films from this and send it to a few universities in the States? And he says, sure, I can.
And I've seen that, and I'm watching these guys, and I'm saying, that's pretty good for that time. That's pretty good.
Not many of the scouts phoned me. There were a couple, but mostly they phoned him at home. And his brother did most of the work as his agent.
I came back home, I was getting calls the day after I got calls from Maryland and West Virginia, and Penn State came out of the blue. I got my brother involved, kind of like my little player agent, and he kind of talked to these people to see what was the next step.
Two of the universities, Marshall and Penn State, both of them asked for Romel to come down for a visit. Romel went down for a visit at Marshall, and then I drove him down to Penn State.
I ended up getting two visits. One was to Virginia, Marshall College, and the other one was to Penn State, and just fell in love with Penn State. The guys from West Virginia came up, flew into Kitchener. So these guys come out with the accent. My mom and dad are just so happy to have them. They got the wine going, they got the meal going. So they're sitting there on the couch talking with my mom and dad, and I don't know how the West Virginia accent and the Italians were going because they don't speak English. I get a phone call, so I answer the phone. It's the coach from Penn State. So I can't hide anywhere. I got the cord attached, so I'm kind of looking from the kitchen. I'm looking at the couch, and he says, "They're there, aren't they?" And I said, "Yes." All one-word answers. Okay, well, I'll just keep talking. He says, how do you feel? Are you interested in Penn State? Yes. Do you want to commit to Penn State? Yes. So I'm committing to these guys, and I have to tell these guys, well, I'll think about it. But they knew. I'm sure they knew what was going on.
No, I was hoping he would pursue it at some point. But like I say, my buddy Don McRae at the time, who was coach at Waterloo, I'm sure would have been glad to have him too.
I knew that he'd come out a better basketball player and a better man going to a U.S. university because I'd gone through it, and it's a tough sledding.
Will Chamberlain showed up for one game. He kind of strutted into the gym. We were warming up, and we're going, hey, they're giving us a standing ovation. No, it was Mr. Wilt walking in, and just a, I want to say Adonis, a statue. He was amazing. So we're sitting on our balcony in Montreal where we were residing, and we're looking at Montreal Stadium before it was finished. There's no tower, there's no roof on it. They were so far behind. And the two girls there are our translators, even though we spoke English.
Yeah, I was glad to see that when he made the Olympic team, and the national team, because I thought that would be a really good fit for him.
It was my girlfriend at the time. She just called me up and said, "Hey, there's an article in the paper." It was like, seriously, that big. There's tryouts, regional tryouts in Toronto for the national team. I go, I didn't even know there was a national team. Okay. So I thought, well, I'm going to school in the States. That should give me a little bit of heads up. Maybe I don't know who knows me, but I'll give it a go. And there was about, I'd say 40 guys invited to that camp. And then from there, 10 of us were invited to the main camp in Ottawa. That's where Coach Donahue was. And so 40 showed up at the national camp. And then we did 3-a-days. And basically just tried to survive that and made that. I remember going into the stadium with all the athletes. The girls were in front of us, guys behind. And you go underneath, and the last team to come in is the home team. So we're the last team. All the other teams are lined up inside the oval. And I look up and I go, oh my God, Prime Minister Trudeau and the Queen are like within spitting distance of us, and they're saluting us and waving to us. I said, this could be okay. And I remember, I'm thinking Olympics, boy, we're gonna get the best clothes. And what happened was we got all these clothes and nothing fit. Like, how are we gonna go? We got opening ceremonies in a couple hours. How are we gonna make this fit? The shirts are like this, pants are very long. Out comes a stapler. We cut our sleeves on our shirt, put them down to where they should be, taped them on our forearm, threw on our jacket, got our pants approximately where they should be, stapled them. You know, they're not going to see us up in the stands. So I'm going, this is the Olympics. And then just the amazing experience of playing in front of your country, and they're singing, and that was just amazing.
At the Olympics, there was a coach there, or a general manager for one of the Italian teams, realized that Romel could technically play in Italy as an Italian and not be declared an import.
Mauricio Gherardini, who ended up working for the Raptors, he was a young buck working for this team in Italy that eventually got in contact with me and Donahue. And then we met in Ottawa, and we ironed up a contract to play in Italy.
For his playing career, he might have been probably better off had he finished at Penn State. He told me about the opportunity, and then he decided, I'm sure on his own, that that I can't pass this up.
So I ended up going to Italy for 2 years and finishing school during the summertime. I thought this would be the best team I played on. And this was Leo Routens at his prime, Jimmy Zoot and Phil Tolstrup, just great guys. And I thought this would be it. We started to make a name for ourselves around the world.
The 1980 Olympics, we really, in my mind, had one of the best teams in the history of Canada. It was the first time Canada we tied with Puerto Rico in a qualifying tournament. It was the first time Canada qualified.
We qualified in a very tough environment. We had to go to Puerto Rico. We had to finish in the top 3. And then a couple of days later, coach tells us that I just got the word from government, we're not going. What are you talking about? He had to explain this, like, Afghanistan.
Canada's athletes are being asked to boycott the Moscow Olympics. The Canadian government says the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan has made it inappropriate for the USSR to hold the Olympics. The boycott decision was announced in the House of Commons this afternoon.
And everything we worked for is gone. It's just done. And it was a really hard pill to swallow, because I really believe that I think we would have medaled in those Olympics in 1980, and it was very difficult for everybody because of that.
I mean, nobody was beating the U.S. Nobody was beating the U.S. But I would like to have seen them get a shot at some of the other countries, and it was tragic. It really, really was.
It was sad. It was really sad. We did a lot of crying. A lot of my teammates never went to Olympics.
For some of the guys that were at the end of their career, that played in '76 in Montreal, 80 would have been their last shot and they never got one.
Leo, who should have been in the Olympics, couldn't go in '76. 80, he got drafted in '83, so he's not going to go to the next one. It's the pros. So I felt really bad for those guys that weren't going to get a chance.
My personal background, this was beyond just Canada boycotting. So I was in a dilemma because for my family, for my mother, for my father, everything they went through, I supported the boycott. I understood. And I actually told Jack, I said, Jack, hey, coach, I said, I don't know if we don't boycott, if I can play.
You know, they say politics and sports should never mix, but the truth is they're like this. They're always intertwined. And people were making political statements by using their sporting teams.
That's what bothered us the most, is where, you know, they're taking away the whole gist of the Olympic movement, is to countries play each other, try to get to know each other, build relationships, not destroy them. So, no.
Full court press on by the Soviet Union. Canada is going to win this game. It's all over. And they're mobbing one another. The biggest moment probably in the history of this Canadian national basketball team, as they have just beaten the world champion Soviet Union.
Coach Donahue calls me up and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I am raising a family, working for a life." He says, "You want to try out?" I said, "Whoa, I hadn't even thought about it." I said, "I don't know, Coach." "Sure." So I got the tryouts, and when Jessica was born that Friday, we ended up 3 weeks away from home. I didn't even know what my kid looked like. My wife was going, "Why are you still running and playing?" And I said, "I still have the itch, I guess." And I thought I could add something. Instead of being maybe just a role player, I could be, you know, like maybe a leader on the team. I dislocated my shoulder 3 weeks before, so I didn't even know if I was going to go to the games. And Doc Pipe, one of our managers, got me going and somehow got me back. They had some playground guy named Michael Jordan. It was amazing. Charles Barkley got cut. Mailman got cut. And here's these future Hall of Famers not on the team. We were shaking our head. They came out with a pretty good squad anyway. This picture was taken in Montevideo, Uruguay, and we're sitting there. We had just won our ticket to Seoul, Korea. We had to finish in the top 3, and we beat Uruguay in Uruguay, and that's the cup we're holding.
Full court press on by the Soviet Union. Canada is going to win this game. It's all over. And they're mobbing one another. The biggest moment probably in the history of this Canadian national basketball team, as they have just beaten the world champion Soviet Union. Look at those Canadian kids love their coach, Jack Donahue.
As a coach, isn't this going to help you a great deal in getting your players up, keeping them on the team, keeping the spirit up, and going for a medal next year?
I'll tell you, Tom, yeah. We're headed for a medal, and now that's one of the teams we have to beat, and we beat them right now.
Coach D always had, he photocopied a gold medal. He says, "I don't know what color medal we're going to have, guys, but we're looking for one of these." And that was his goal. And we felt very confident that we were going to get a medal. That's the only reason I stayed with it. And it was all because of him, you know, the support of my wife, and he kept me going. And we lost to Yugoslavia in the bronze game, which was another heartbreaker. I knew what to expect. So again, I knew that I was working. I had 2 children. It was a really sad time for me. Once I made it, once we qualified, once it was over, I remember crying. I said, it's over. I said, I was 34 at the time. I gave it all, and just happy that it happened.
You know, life's kind of interesting when you make decisions to do something. Okay, there are consequences, and sometimes good, sometimes not. But I think this was a good one. Okay, and I'm glad he came out. I mean, it's a little selfish on our part to get him out and play because we wanted to win too. But I think it was good for him and gave him a lot of opportunities he wouldn't have otherwise had.
He just seemed like a good teammate. And for me, playing against him, the ultimate compliment is I couldn't stand playing against the guy. But when I did get to play with him later on, it was unbelievable. And I think that's the biggest compliment you can give somebody, that you hate to play against them, but you love to play with them.
He was just a great teammate in a locker room, off the court, and on the court. And in practice, I mean, I remember one day I couldn't practice. I wasn't feeling too good, and I felt like I felt 100 times worse I couldn't practice because of the way Romel made me feel. He said, "Are you serious? Are you kidding me?" Like, just killed me, right? Because with him, you work. And the fact that this guy, you know, played in 3 Olympics, should have been 4, it just tells you, how do you do that? How do you play for that long a period of time at that level and be as productive as he was? It's an all team. That's all this. Romel was all about winning and making the team better. And I said, one of the greatest teammates you could ever want.
I never thought I belonged, seriously. And I always thought I had to work harder to get there. So I was always in awe. Even when I retired, I said, you know, I got into this Hall of Fame thing, and I go, you're just doing a job.
I don't think that Romel, when he started with the national team, had in his mind that he'd be playing for 12 years for the national team. He made a hell of a sacrifice.
So I'm just hoping that the guys realize what a privilege it is. I mean, being a pro is an incredible privilege, but playing for your country is also, and I'm so proud that I've done that, and I hope that they have even a small inkling of that pride to give back, because it's a great country.
It's a great story for kids to really understand how important it was for Romel to represent his country.
No, I'm always in awe that, and very humbled that they gave me that opportunity.
Down to earth and very goal-orientated when it comes to sports, and he's a competitor, and I'm very, very proud of him.
I hope someone sees that I came from, first of all, from not knowing how to play the game and was able to achieve that. I hope that makes a difference, but if you can, little guy from Kitchener that made it, I hope that gets out.